Let's move into midfield. I would have to say this, Tom. I think this is a absolute priority area for
Hmm.
Arsenal. Do you agree?
Yeah, it was my number one. I remember, I think we did a show a few months ago saying,
Mm.
where would my priority be? And I said, at the time, I think a lot of people said centre forward, but I said that, centre midfield is my number one area because obviously the Partey situation's a bit up in the air about whether or not he's going to leave or whether he's going to see out the last year of his contract. Latest indications on that are more towards him actually seeing out the last year rather than leaving. So that's an interesting one to follow because the interest, of course, from Saudi hasn't necessarily emerged too much in that area. James Benge, I think, had the latest word on that. And then you got Jorginho staying for another year, Smith Rowe potentially going. And Smith Rowe, while we think of Smith Rowe playing the majority of his games on the left side, at the present day, whenever he comes on, it's either as a replacement for Ødegaard or he's playing the left eight alongside Ødegaard. So he fits into that midfield category of players that we might need to replace. And obviously, the big name that's being talked about at the moment is Merino, who I rate very highly and have been talking about for a number of years now on the channel from his time at Real Sociedad. He's a player alongside Martin Zubimendi who has always kind of come up in conversations about what midfielder should we go for. It was always, in terms of Spanish players, him and Fabian, who obviously both of them had very good European championships with Spain this summer. But Mikel Merino never was ever really linked with Arsenal, so he didn't get talked about a lot until this summer has rolled around and his name has come out because, Real Sociedad don't tend to like to let their best players go. That's why Miko Oyarzabal is still there and has been for so many years. But also, they don't tend to sell players unless it's for buyout clauses and huge fees, similar to Athletic Club as well, who are another Basque side in Spain. So with Mikel Merino being 1 year left on his deal and having given them such good service, they are more willing and amenable to allowing him to leave for a more reasonable fee. And that's obviously opened up options from not just Arsenal, but Barcelona are said to be interested. Atletico Madrid have also been interested. And so far, supposedly, according to reports in Spain, been the only side really to put forward an official offer towards him. But the latest is that Arsenal are keen on him. They are very interested in him. They will move when they feel the time is right. There's a lot of resources going into this Calafiori situation, of course, at the moment to get that wrapped up and done. And it seems the noises are as well that Moreno would be keen on a switch to Arsenal because it's a move to a Champions League club. He's moving at a point in his career where this is like the last really big move in his career at, his mid to late 20s. And he would be playing Champions League football with a side challenging for the Premier League and potentially getting plenty of minutes because there's always opportunities to get if you prove yourself in a Mikel Arteta team. But yeah, I rate the guy.
Yeah, and I wanted to stick with him because Romano's tweeted a while ago now that, the interest from Arsenal in Merino remains absolutely strong. Arsenal have made several calls on the players' side to confirm their interest. It's one of the candidates for the midfield. He's not the only one, but the interest is very genuine. And I always go on AFC stuff because I quite like what they put out there just from a number of journalists about that. And there's quite a lot of kind of talk on it and say that Chelsea are interested, also Aston Villa, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, all these clubs that all want him. But apparently Arsenal and the team are the team, that Mikel Merino would like to join the most. Well, Merino is Arteta's midfield priority. Real Sociedad are expecting a formal offer from the Premier League that will satisfy their demands. So it looks like this could be a bit of a go, Tom. Looks like the proposal's being put together. You say you've followed him for a while. I actually didn't know that. I want to ask what sort of midfielder we might be getting and some of his attributes and whereabouts you think he can play in type of midfield.
Yeah, so before I got a job specifically covering Arsenal, La Liga and Spanish football was my jam, and I very much appreciated Mikel Merino's time in Spain. But obviously, he's played in other nations as well. He's been in Germany with Borussia Dortmund. He's been at Newcastle already in the Premier League as well. He made a few appearances for them. This is like 7 years ago. You haven't to go back though to see those performances, and he's come on a lot since then. There was always the big question about Mikel Merino when he was younger was like, what type of midfielder is he? And at Real Sociedad, he has kind of more found that place, especially playing, in this box-to-box midfield role where he ranks very highly in terms of midfielders in the top 5 European leagues in terms of touch in the penalty area for his position. He ranks very highly in terms of aerial duels. Of course, he had his heroics for Spain in the quarterfinals by showcasing that as well. He's a brilliant duel winner. He's not shying away from a challenge. He loves getting into tackles, but he's also a good goal scorer for a midfielder and will pop up with goals. And as I mentioned, with the amount of touches he has in the box per 90 is ranked very highly. So, yeah, I like the idea of bringing in a player that in a market where there isn't necessarily a standout Declan Rice-esque type signing that we can do for this position, that what you can do is go and get a slightly less expensive deal for a slightly older player who gives you immediate quality of a top level, has played in the Champions League, played for Spain, of course, has also held the captain's armband at times for Real Sociedad in certain games as well. So he's a fantastic presence in the dressing room. And you've got someone who you don't have to commit £100 million to, and that next summer, when Partey and Jorginho are probably not at the club, you've brought him in, and then you've opened up the space to still go out and get a top world-class potential player, or someone who's not a lot younger and has got the potential to be that world-class player. So, yeah, it's very much in the ilk of a midfielder that I wanted to see Arsenal go for.
That's exciting. I haven't seen him much, I can't lie. I saw him at the Euros and I was quite impressed, funnily enough. But to be fair, I was impressed with the whole of Spain, if I'm honest. But when it comes to Mikel Merino, I like some of the attributes I see. I like what I read. I like what I hear. I've looked at the YouTube compilations, which is always very dangerous. But I have kind of liked what I've seen, bruv. I must say this. I mean, I've got a couple of two questions for you here in midfield, really. I think the first one is, if he comes in, do you think he starts? Because for me, Partey, Rice and Odegaard is still the best that we can look at when everybody's fit. So that's my first question to you.
Yeah.
And my second question is, do you still feel that we might need another midfield option on top of Merino?
In a dream world, probably. In terms of defensive options, we've got, I suppose, you've got Rice, you've got top Partey, and you've got Jorginho, who could all play as a 6. At the left 8 position, you've got, of course, at the moment, Smith Rowe, but he probably is going to go. You've got Rice will probably be the starter in that role, with Partey, I agree with you, being the starting left-sided centre midfielder. Mikel Merino would also be an option in that area. And you've got Fabio Vieira as well, who can also play in that position. And you've got Kai Havertz, who has played a number of times, although I'm not a big fan of seeing him in that role personally, and would rather he was playing further up the pitch. The other player that you've got to consider who can also play in central attacking midfield, and two of those attacking midfield, is Ethan Nwaneri, who I really want to see given opportunities this season. And the other player also who's on the tour at the moment who can play, is more of a defensive centre mid, but can play as an 8, is Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's also on the tour at the moment. And these are two really exciting young players. You know, we chastise and criticise Arteta for not giving his kids chances, but we also got to think about at the same time, while we're desperately calling for signings, that we might be incidentally blocking the pathway for some of these really exciting younger players to get some opportunities. So I'd like to see, potentially, if we were to bring in Moreno and, you know, say Smith Rowe goes, I think there's potential for us to go for maybe a versatile attacking player that could also play in midfield. But I would be mindful of blocking that pathway for Nwaneri to get more minutes, especially when you've got Rice, Merino, Jorginho and Partey all at the club as well, you know, for however long we've got them.
I wanted to come to you with a kind of source that was read out on Straight Facts on the Terrace with myself, LB, and Terry just not long ago, which was suggesting that after Calafiori is done, Arsenal are going to go all out for Merino and for Nico Williams. Now, people will, and someone did in the chat earlier, actually, which I've lost the chat comment now, was, why are we getting another left winger? We need a right winger to cover for Saka. Now, Nico Williams, from what I believe, can play on the right wing as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Martinelli and Trossard can play there, to be fair, and Gabriel Jesus can play out wide as well. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, on the outright about Nico Williams. I mean, I really would be excited by this. He lit up the Euros. He's been phenomenal in the last season. He's been spoken about by a lot of people. Some, though, however, in the chat and in the chat on the last show, were sort of like, he's not really doing that great. He's had a meaty season. I'm not too sure about it. Where are you at, mate? Would this be an exciting signing for Arsenal? And do you think we could get it done?
If Arsenal signed Nico Williams, it would be the signing of the summer.
Wow.
For me, because at 22 years of age, having played on both, I mean, for anyone saying to you like he's a left winger, he doesn't play on the right, they're just outing themselves as people who haven't watched him, because he does play on both sides, and even though he's, you know, predominantly right-footed, he can use his left. He scores goals with his left, and he's very creative as a player and a winger as well. He loves to put crosses into the box, and when you've got a player like Havertz in the box, you want to see those types of chances create. I think his chance creation type is perfect for Arsenal, where he dives towards the byline, can cut the ball back, but can also get some early crosses into the box as well. The variation's really good. The problem is I give this like a 5% chance of happening, and
wow,
it's I just can't see it. I know I hope I'm proven wrong, but it seems from everyone that, you know, we've talked to, like, he's the one who is the most keen on one specific club, and that's Barcelona. Like, Barcelona is where he sees himself. I think that the partnership he's built up at the Spanish national side with Lamine Yamal on the right-hand side and him play on the left to replicate that at club level, I think would attract him a lot. So he can kind of, just transition so seamlessly between club and international football. But Barcelona's situation is so complicated with their money situation and how they're going to fund transfers. Athletic Club have a release clause, but the issue is that they want that paid, the majority of, if not all of it, up front. Like they do in like we did with Partey, of course, when we activated his £45 million release clause, we had to pay that all up front to activate the release clause. So it's the same situation with Nico. I think if Barcelona struggled to get this deal done, then Arsenal would certainly be looking at it. Arsenal this summer are with a window where we, as I've mentioned already, there isn't the Declan Rices, there isn't the Gabriel Jesus obvious targets that we've had in previous windows in, midfield and attacking positions. They're very much in this market acting on opportunity and for market opportunities in particular. Calafiori is one of those. Merino, with 1 year left on his deal at his age group with the midfield difficulties in this market, is another opportunity. Sesko at the beginning of the window was another opportunity that they were keen on, but obviously he chose instead to stay with RB Leipzig for at least another season. They're being opportunistic this window. And to be honest, that is what clubs, when you get to the level of being a title challenger, will tend to look to. They'll look for opportunities because reinforcing and improving a squad that is challenging for a title is far harder than it is for a team like Man United or Spurs or Chelsea at the moment, who are struggling to even, break into the top four at times. It's far easier to improve those sides with the, players that are out there. But the players that are available that will improve United, that will improve Spurs, that will improve Chelsea, won't improve us because our level is so much significantly higher. So Arsenal are looking for those opportunities. Mikel Arteta really likes Nico Williams, but to do that deal would require, I think, a lot of dominoes to fall certain ways, and I just don't see it. I just can't see it happening. It would be like, and that said, like Lenny Yoro, who's gone to Man United, that situation where Real Madrid wanted him, he wanted to go to Real Madrid, but Lille basically said, "You've got to go because Man United are offering us a joke amount of money for you, far more than Real Madrid, like more than double what Real Madrid are willing to pay." And they said, if you don't go, like you're not. I think there was a report that went out from French media suggesting he wouldn't be playing for them basically because they need that money, and he only had 1 year left on his deals. It was almost like they got him out the club to get that money in, and that's not the situation with Nico because he only has recently signed a new deal, and he likes being Athletic Club. It's his hometown club. He's come through that. It's a very family-orientated group, that group in Athletic. So it's such a difficult deal to do for Arsenal.